Greetings, everyone. That was a fantastic. That's a fantastic theme song that I came up with, and I think it fits right in. To Is my mic mute? We have a special guest. This is Matthew Muir. This is kind of a special episode. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All the way from the UK. I'm alongside here with my pal, good friend, brother Brian Yee.
Hey everybody.
Hey, and we also have and Phil Metzger also can pop in if he does or not. So shout out to him too. Us free is Florentin, Brian, and Phil. We are BFP, so BFP Imagineering. So today we're gonna since today is very interesting. So we're gonna, since we have Matthew, I've always been curious about this project. I've always seen this project about his broader project on the Once Upon a Studio from Disney Animation, and so I'm really interested to hearing about your feedback, about your vision. I'm very inspired. So it's great to be inspired by this. So here it is right here. He has a wiki page, and you call this the version 2.0.
A massive extended cut.
Extended cut, yes, sir. Now it says here, written by none other than yourself. Are the other names, is that the original writers or?
Yeah, and the fourth name, the final one down, is my friend Lauren, who lives in North Carolina. She also provided a bit of input.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
She's currently working at Walt Disney World, though.
Oh wow. Okay. So she's in the Orlando area. Yes.
Yeah. What it was I thought. Let me explain the origins of this project. I originally thought the original Once Upon a Studio, it was a bit held back from its absolute fullest potential. Like, I started to nitpick in a number of areas. Like, I noticed that they had been a little bit too selective with the voice casting. Like, they brought back Jeremy Irons as Scar for the first time since 1993. They also brought back John C. Reilly as Wreck-It Ralph and Paige O'Hara as Belle, only for them to then recast Prince Charming from Cinderella, who's been voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes since 2001. And also suddenly recasting Snow White out of nowhere. And then I noticed that Mufasa was absent, which I considered a massive insult to the character, especially since Simba and Nala are left on their own in their cub forms with Scar leaning directly over them. And I also decided, I also then noticed that Goofy's ladder gag was a horrible piece of mood whiplash, because it can work in some circumstances, but not in the face of such a massive milestone. I also finally decided that the new rendition of When You Wish Upon a Star tried too hard to emulate the original 1940 version.
So let me add. No, go ahead, Florentin. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Phil. Go ahead, Brian.
So what inspired you for this? Because when this first came out, I feel like this was a piece that summed up so much history, in not just summed up so much history in a way that we haven't seen since Roger Rabbit,
or House of Mouse, even.
Exactly, but also too, it felt home for the first time in a while. So, did you pick at this because you just wanted more of a wholeness of what home could
Absolutely
be? Okay.
That I decided that maybe it was a bit too subdued, and I thought to myself, it had every right to go to those lengths. A lot of people do actually blame it on or blame the understated version we ultimately got on the messy transition from Bob Iger to Bob Chapek and then back to Bob Iger. They also blame it on Jennifer Lee's supposed meekness as head of Walt Disney Animation Studios, and they even blame it to a degree on COVID budget constraints. But I think I realise now that none of those supposed constraints were really constraints at all. Like, it was just a singular vision of those two directors, Dan Abraham and Trent Corey, that was largely insulated from any kind of executive drama.
Yes, I think that can be it. Yes.
Like Bob Iger and Bob Chapek and Jennifer Lee, they were just convenient scapegoats.
Oh, no, right about that. Yes, definitely. No, yes, absolutely. The current team behind Disney at its current. So you were saying that they brought back some original voices, but some of the
But they were too selective.
Too selective, and then there's certain voices that they recasted. Now, what you mean by that? For example, the Prince Charming that took over. Is he? So they could have used his voice, but they recasted his voice.
Yeah, because Christopher Daniel Barnes, although he's going to be like 54 this year, his voice still sounds immaculate because he's also been the voice of Prince Eric.
Okay.
So wow. I was baffled why they were recasting, and I thought to myself, why would they choose this for this occasion of all possible occasions?
That's very interesting. Like I said, I think it's interesting when you are a Disney fan, and I literally talked about this last night with Phil and Florentin. I played the D23 2026 trailer, and then I played the Super Bowl commercial of the Disney 100. I said which commercial, was more built on hype and which one was more of an invitation for you to contribute something. And so to me, I would understand if, the person's no longer here or you had to reuse voice clips, but, for him to be 54 years old and still be here, that is disrespectful to the character. Charles Martinet. A lot of people wanted him to be the voice of Mario for the Mario movies, and all he had was just that one, Let's Go. It was an odd, but it wasn't respecting the material. So
part of me wonders though if maybe they were just they only recast because they were trying to find someone who fit the tone of that specific character in a way that fit the tone of the individual project.
Right.
Oh, that's a very interesting.
Maybe they were willing to sacrifice longer term vocal continuity.
If I had to guess, could it been to do with timing and availability?
Even in a supposed best case scenario where Christopher Daniel Barnes was available as Charming and Eric, and also where Katie Von Till, the main voice of Snow White since 2010, even if they were both available and the budget, and there were no budget issues whatsoever, which I don't think there were, I fear that Dan Abraham and Trent Corey may still have gone for a recast regardless.
Yes, absolutely. Now about the song that the
When You Wish Upon a Star.
When You Wish Upon a Star, especially in the finale. I just rewatched it just moments before we got together, and I watched it and it refreshed. It was a refresh to my memory, and you brought up that the arrangement the arrangement was pretty much kind of too focused as the original.
It tried too hard to emulate the original, and I thought to myself, there was a bit more oomph to expand it. So I decided it should be performed by a larger orchestra, and the bridge of the song, instead of just being delegated to the off-screen choir, it should actually be delegated to some of the characters as well.
Well, let me ask this question, if you don't mind. I do understand the. I think I'm getting the perspective that you're saying of, while it's great to showcase, how the studio has come together, you cannot just be selective in what parts of the magic that you want to showcase, and to turn up the parts that you want and to turn down the other parts that you want. Do you think, because maybe this was it was a short film for what it was, do you think maybe getting all those characters to sing those different parts could have chewed up the production timeline potentially, and that's why they did?
Yeah, potentially. I think they may have had to start voice recording sooner, but honestly, in the scheme of things, it's an easy sacrifice.
Understood.
And I think also the runtime would increase to around 15 to 20 minutes instead of only 10 minutes. And I think that would give it more time to play out, and honestly more time also to accommodate a very key element. And one key element in my version is the staircase scene where Cinderella, Rapunzel, Moana and their families, they're still inside, and they realise that it wasn't actually just Goofy's clumsiness that derailed everything. It was actually the immense pressure of the 100th.
And my observation was that the ending was not very as powerful as it could have been. Is your outlook that it could have been more? The climax could have been more grandiose, like a grandiose finale. And I don't know if you picked that up. The one thing that stood out to me when I was until the very end, when I was paying attention to the finale of the choir, of all the characters, everyone all together, was I felt something was missing. Of course, there's a variety of voices, animals, but for me, I was like, all I sensed was I heard all male vocals, so it was like a broad tenor. It was almost like a whole male choir.
The choir only had about 20 members at most, and another another 30 voice actors on top of that, only amounting to a total of 54 vocalists. But my version would feature a much larger choir of 80 vocalists and all 58 voice actors singing.
Yeah, because yes.
No, go ahead.
Because Mickey has distinctive Mickey Mouse has a distinctive voice.
A distinctive falsetto.
Yes, there are characters that have such a unique tone. So I think it's quite a challenge to have so many characters, so many number of the whole group there. And I think that was a very important. I feel that is the very important moment from the entire short. And if the momentum wasn't going as, the momentum could have been more iconic or more grand scale, like climax. And as you said, as you said, they were going too much by the classic. That after that, it
just tapered off.
It felt the energy as if they were just there. They were there for the photo. They were there for the photo, but it wasn't that they were. And then the scene changed to as if it was just a souvenir from the photo. And
the biggest insult, however, in the entire short was, of course, leaving out Mufasa, because I consider him Disney's single most important parent figure.
So it was Mufasa. I thought it was Jafar.
Jafar was still present, but Mufasa wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, James Earl Jones, and the legend,
his health was already on the decline before he passed away about just under a year later.
And I think where you're getting at is the fullness of the totality of the representation of all of Disney, not just part of it. There was an interesting time period. I watched this documentary on YouTube about the transition of, Kermit the Frog here. Of course, I cannot do a Kermit impression, but follow the green bouncing ball, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to lead to a point that I think Matthew is trying to make here. When it came to the new voice of Kermit, what the Jim Henson Company decided to do was they decided to do a tribute to Jim Henson by having the characters tell the life of Jim Henson. And then at the end of the special, it was like a 1 hour special, but at the end
Kermit
of it,
walks in, puppeted by Steve Whitmire for the first time.
Exactly. And they say, your friend Jim has recently passed, and it hits them all at once. So maybe the expansion of, this Once Upon a Studio in a 4 hour film of, somebody from, the Disney family, if Diane Disney was still here, to walk in and be like, Diane, the daughter of Walt Disney, something more cohesive seems like is what you're, how do you put it? It seems like that version would have been more cohesive for you and for
others. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and in my version, Cinderella and also Rapunzel have a slightly larger role. Rapunzel does actually go to check on Goofy along with Flynn Rider to make sure he hasn't hurt himself too badly, while Cinderella gives the whole cohort a really nice, heartwarming speech, urging them not to give up in the face of the accident, and she even acknowledges the pressure head on, and then afterwards, a fairy godmother actually conjures Rapunzel's guitar, and she starts up When You Wish Upon a Star, and it builds to a far bigger climax. And a few characters actually sing who you wouldn't normally see doing it. For example, at one point, Tarzan and Jane actually have a brief duet.
Oh, wow, that would have been nice, yes.
And Tony Goldwyn and Minnie Driver would actually return to voice them for the first time since 1998.
Yeah, Tarzan would have been a great move. The thing that when I watched the character, how they had each of the iconic classic characters show up and present themselves on their way to the gathering, the reunion. I love the creativity that they did with. It seems to me that some of the characters that, of course, they keep something that represents themselves or their personality, but it seems that they were creative with some characters, whereas other characters it was basically like a just a copy. For example, with Peter Pan. For me, that was kind of like a copy, just here we go, and flying, and in the same form as in Peter Pan, and then but then you have so what was really entertaining for the short is it wasn't all that. Then you had some creativity, and then there was some moments where in the beginning I was wondering, why is Moana wet? How did she get wet? Oh, because of the fizz bowl. And then
because of the ocean flinging her from her portrait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then for Aladdin was fine, but how did the watermelons appear on
Frozen?
From Frozen.
Yeah, they were actually the trolls in their shell forms.
Oh, okay. So I see. Yeah. Mm-hmm. but
Well,
those
I actually did consider doing something a bit more unorthodox. For example, you know when Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon comes running out after Jim Hawkins and making a loop around him, I was originally going to have Prince Eric desperately running out with Max to gather the others, you know, from the Little Mermaid aid, and then Jim Hawkins swiftly turning to the side to alert Maui. And then what I would have done later, as Cinderella and Prince Charming come down the stairs, is I would have had who actually noticing what was going on, you know, as Charming dropped his shoe, and as she knows it's finally happened to you, before rushing outside with the others. But then Sisu would actually be forced to intervene when Car from the Jungle Book goes after Clarabelle. Well, you know, when Rapunzel is forced to hit Car with her frying pan to free Clarabelle.
Yeah, the whole Rapunzel, just going after her pan, to go hit somebody,
It feels a bit too reminiscent of the original. So I thought to myself, it for sure had every right just generally to stir things up a bit, and not just stick to gaggish orthodoxy.
Right. It's seeming like from.
But I feel that Rapunzel with her pan was not necessary.
Yeah.
For this.
Sisu could have commanded a stronger presence to free Car.
Yeah,
I feel like from what's being said here, it seems that maybe the undertone should have been more about the characters in their actual personality form rather than just trying to fan service so many different things, right? Like the Peter Pan, here we go, let Peter Pan breathe, and, you know, oh my God, I've always had the energy to go, but I've never had the thought of where I want it to go, and then showing Rapunzel of, you know what, I don't have to be in defense mode. I'm around my family, so let me put down the pan and, you know, showcase more personality. So it seems like more fan service than allowing us to see the characters in full form.
Yeah, I do think Dan Abraham and Trent Corey never truly wanted Once Upon a Studio to showcase the horrific stakes of the 100th. No, I don't. There's no need to play the short right now.
I know. I'm not playing the short. I'm just showing that the Rapunzel is holding the pan. That's all.
Yeah, I'd rather just let the viewers watch it themselves after the review. Sorry.
Oh no! Yeah, we're not watching the short. Oh, here's a question about Rapunzel. Do you think that she's supposed to show up with her shorter hairstyle?
Actually, no, I don't mind it, to be honest. I think the portraits were designed to show the characters like in their absolute prime.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I ultimately didn't do with the group photo, but considered doing, was actually pairing up Asher from Wish with Jim Hawkins. So, like, during When You Wish Upon a Star, they would have actually come gliding down into the courtyard on Jim's Solar Surfer. And that would actually be a very powerful symbol because, Treasure Planet really bombed during its initial box office opening in 2002.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I decided I had to just get the sheer scale of the climax right. This was 100 years and I feared this may be the last true opportunity to truly get a big milestone right. But I think Dan Abraham and Trent Corey just had this very defiant mindset. Like they couldn't be swept up in the sheer pressure of the 100th.
Is there a favorite? Do you have a favorite moment in the short? How it turned out?
I would probably say Mickey talking to Walt's portrait. That was the one thing that I knew definitely had to stay, and because it does kind of ground everything a bit. But then I decided after that, at the state apes had to be let on. There could be no more or gags without a bit of gravitas to offset it and show a bit of self-awareness.
For me, my favorite characters that sang "When You Wish Upon a Star" was the Jungle Book. Was when it was Mowgli and Bayou.
The balloon.
That was Bayou. Yeah, that was a very touching moment.
Yeah. I also like how they brought back Tom Hulse, but the question for me was, why couldn't they go further? But I realise only now that they kept it restrained and they kept it understated on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It was a calculated move of defiance of the sheer stakes of the 100, whereas I sought to embrace the stakes.
I have to say, I think if I could give a couple of, places that I thought were very good, I think the fact that, the puppies were watching Chernobog and, they were protective of the puppies, right?
Yeah, and Kristoff and Frozen had to get them away from the TV.
Correct. And then you see, Baymax trying to get into the elevator. So you do have those moments of, these characters, while they are all so different, they all have a magical property to them. And then, we think about Cinderella, her glass slipper falling, and then you have, her husband and his slipper falls, and they have that.
Yeah, this time it was the prince. This time it was Prince Charming.
Yes.
That had his shoe fall.
So I do love how they, they try to, flip things and also utilize some of the characters' traits.
Yeah, my one other change I did actually make was I actually brought back Moana's father, Chief Tui, voiced by Star Wars legend Tamora Morrison. Knowing Chief Tui, he's been in the first movie at least. He was a very strict, overprotective helicopter father, but he softened out, he mellowed out considerably from the end of the first movie, and he actually seems to get on very well with Mary in my version.
Understood.
And also, another really cool moment was when they showed the rescuers just yanding. Those are the kind of moments that you rewind them and you said, "Oh, what was that? Who was that? Oh, wow, that was the rescuers." So,
yeah,
was Stitch in the short?
Yeah, he was actually caught trying to devour Goofy's camera.
Yes, I'm sure he was. I must have missed that.
And also too, I love the fact that Oswald got to be in the front of the picture with his brother Mickey.
So do I.
Oh yeah.
For those who don't know why Oswald, and I'll say it quickly here because I definitely want to keep the conversation flowing. If you don't know, Oswald was the first character ever from Walt Disney, and he got lost to Charles Mintz, and there was this woman named Margaret Winkler who was the only female selling cartoons. So years upon years later, when Bob Iger was the CEO and Diane Disney asked Bob Iger, "Can you get Oswald back?" It was a trade for Al Michaels. Al Michaels was at ESPN, so Al Michaels went over to NBC, and then that's how Epic Mickey, the video game, came to be. So to see, Oswald not in the back, but in front with Mickey and, everyone, showcasing that, just because you might have been forgotten about doesn't mean we can't rectify history, was very symbolic.
Yeah. You may also be surprised to discover that the veteran Disney animator Bernie Mattinson, during the filming in August 2022, he actually made a cameo And he actually, only a few months before he sadly passed away in early 2023, he attended a screening of the existing short. And he actually didn't want Danny and Trent to change a single frame in its understated form. So that does beg the question, I think. What do you think Disney would think of my changes? Maybe Dan Abraham and Trent Corey would be a bit skeptical that it truly needed to go to such unyielding lengths to do the 100th justice.
You know, I think what Disney, if the Disney of old was there with, rest in peace to Frank Wells and to Michael Eisner, I think what they would think is, here is a fan that love us that much that wants more of us, right?
Yeah, I think Jennifer Lee, as head of Walt Disney Animation Studios, she might be maybe just a bit wary, but ultimately disapprove of it. And I think Bob Iger and Bob Chapek would generally be quite hands off. Jared Bush, however, would definitely put the strongest endorsement behind my version, I think, because he's always been a very bullish storyteller. I think Bernie Mattinson, though, would put the ultimate check on my version.
Oh no, I agree with that. And for those of you who might have missed it in the scene where Moana's trying to get Flounder Savoir, if you look in the corner, that woman is from Meet the Robinsons. And I thought that was so cool that they mentioned that film. That's a very underrated film.
Yeah, and Carl the Robot from Meet the Robinsons does also return, with Harlan Williams providing his voice.
Yes.
The only way I think Once Upon a Studio could truly have been thrust into the territory of my version is if a third voice came in to shake up the balance a bit. Because otherwise no one would be able to disrupt Dan and Trent's singular mindset. They were completely and utterly undaunted by the 100th and vowed to just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Since this short is based on Disney animation, is there a reason, or was that's just my question. Should Mary Poppins been featured or not?
I don't think any live action characters should have been featured. And I can only speak for myself in this regard, but I think Disney were right to leave out any characters from Song of the South.
Yes, so I think
especially since I don't blame Iger for this. I blame it on Eisner and Wells. They themselves in the late 80s did too little to try and iron, not even temper the harsher elements of the film, but to at least try and contextualize them so audience could go in well warned and treat it like the Disney equivalent of Gone with the Wind.
And for the Mary Poppins part, I think there was a puffer penguin.
Yeah, the weight for penguins were still there.
But I think the core is the hand drawn animation and the classics. And Brian, you're right. There is the penguins, but. I thought that was very cute the way they brought they brought up the Encanto boy. I forgot his name.
Antonio, the youngest member of the family.
Yes, Antonio, the boy who has the gift of talking to animals from Encanto. I thought that was cute that they had him holding other characters. There was a moment that he said something.
I think Joanna from The Rescuers was about to eat Jacques and Gus from Cinderella.
Okay.
And so Antonia actually had to step in and just urge her not to go for the mice.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
Phil here. Phil, do you want to welcome Phil?
Well, welcome, Phil.
Yeah, so Phil, is there anything you want to give?
I just appeared. So
I know I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm sorry. Well,
worry.
welcome, Phil. Welcome to the conversation.
I knew it was going to be 12 o'clock. 'Cause, you know, but I have
yes.
things to do here first.
Mhm. We were just going through the original Once Upon a Studio short,
And my revision of it.
and Matthew was sharing his 2.0.
Where I think the short was held back a bit too much in some areas, and how I tried to fix those flaws, but also explaining exactly why I think they kept it simple. Because people blame it all too often on the messy Iger Chapek transition, they blame it all too often on Jennifer Lee, and they blame it all too often on COVID constraints. But as we've spoken about, I don't think any of those supposed constraints were really constraints at all.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
It was just a singular vision of Dan Abraham and Trent Corey, which, because they developed it completely in the shadows, so it didn't really matter who was in charge of Walt Disney Animation Studios at the time. The only way any of this truly could have been shaken up is if a third voice was involved.
Okay.
Yeah, Matthew was mentioning that some of the characters got recasted, such as the Prince
Charming from Cinderella, and also Snow White, when their veteran voice actors are still in perfect shape, having done them for the best part of like 10 to 15 years. And I also brought up how When You Wish Upon a Star didn't go, in my opinion, quite hard enough for a production of that scale. And of course, I brought up the ultimate insult, having the audacity to leave Mufasa out.
Yeah, I kind of was surprised when I heard about Mufasa was left out. Florentin mentioned it to me, like, oh.
Actually, by accident, I mentioned it to you that it was Jafar, but it was Mufasa, and also me and Phil were
I read it
surprised.
was Mufasa, so.
Yeah, me and Phil were surprised by the Moana's father, but that's just because me and Phil were not as familiar with Moana. I think I've seen Moana only once, and I don't think Phil has seen. You seen Moana at
No,
all,
I've
or
never
not?
watched Moana. I never watched Princess and the Frog. I have not watched Encanto.
That's no big deal, though.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, did you have a favorite moment? Did you have a favorite moment about the Once Upon the Studio short, the original? Yeah.
Maybe not particularly because I'm not sure. I only watched it once, and I don't remember it off the top of my head.
That's fine.
Maybe if I watch it on here, on my phone here, maybe I'll get a refresh.
Yeah, I do actually. Why I'm actually going to put a link in the description of the original short, so you can watch the original version and then compare it to mine.
Okay.
And I was also saying about the When You Wish Upon a Star at the end, even though the choir was a certain size, that it sounded to me as if there was all it was all it the it of course it could have been more grandiose, more climax, but that for me it sounded as if it was all male.
Too
It was like
soft.
it was too much on the male choir that certain voice. Yeah, I think you're supposed to heard a more broader range, a range of females, a range of males, balanced, and then you have the quirky of the tones of certain characters like Mickey Mouse and all that. So yeah, so I think we're catched up.
Hey, you guys can continue. I'm going to do some watching on my end here. So
Okay.
That's good enough. Yeah.
Okay. You might want to put your microphone on mute so it doesn't bleed into the recording.
No, I got earbuds plugged into my phone here. So
Okay.
So continue on. I have
Okay.
one earbud in and one earbud out, so I can listen to both you guys and the video I'm watching.
Okay.
Relating to this conversation, of course.
Yeah.
No,
Is there? No, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say it's been very interesting to have this conversation because I think this is why the fandom is so good. Like, I would have never thought to see this short film that brought all these characters together from a different viewpoint. And I think that's why it's important to hear out all forms of creativity, because when you think about Disney, of course, you have, the movies, you have the TV shows, you have the theme parks, you have the merchandising, you have the live event division with Disney on Ice and Disney Live. But event-based content like this, you just get it. And you don't get really the chance to break it down because it's supposed to be for a time period. I'm sure that there's probably somebody that has reviewed Disneyland Handcrafted, and they have, but they haven't added revisions to it like this. So it's been a great time so far with Matthew.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm not really a revision. I am a bit of a revisionist for certain projects, but only if I feel like something is genuinely missing. Like, when I have had to felt the need to re-engineer projects, I only go over some ones where I know that like there's something waiting to break out, but something's holding it back.
Understood.
Like, I still live by the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree with that as well. Is this one of your? I'm not familiar with. If do you have any other projects or any other?
I did actually do a rewrite earlier of Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time, the second of the two direct-to-video sequels. And I thought to myself that would have been better off as a theatrically released movie with fewer constraints on it, so they could have amped up the darkness a bit more.
Yeah, there are many people out there that say the Cinderella sequels they're good.
Yeah, they're good, but A Twist in Time would have been better off as a theatrical release.
That's the third one, is it?
Yeah. Oh, that's the third movie. What I would have done with that film, though, is I would have just bypassed the first sequel, Dream Come True, altogether, and allowed A Twist in Time to stand on its own as the sole sequel.
I think I've only watched the first and the third. I
probably just as well, but you bypassed the second one.
Yeah, I think the third one was I think it was a very strong plot. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and a very mature one as well.
I don't know what the point of the story plot for the second one was.
No, I don't think there was much point. It just feels a bit superfluous, the second one.
What are your thoughts about the Cinderella franchise? Do you think that Cinderella?
Yeah, I do think it's a very strong franchise, and I do think A Twist in Time. It didn't feel like a break from the character, but it felt like an expansion of her character, and also also a brutal expose of Lady Tremaine's treatment of Anastasia and Drizella, her two biological daughters, which I consider the sole reason they had any involvement in the abuse of Cinderella.
Yeah, I think the most beautiful thing about these Disney stories is that they are able to capture what we would like to believe life is, and through the power of animation, give what we think different perspectives to create our own definitions to what we would like to see.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Disney does so well. And there used to be a time period where if you you heard a friend of yours project was going to be at Disney, you were like, wait, you're working with Disney? You mean that Disney? No. Can I come? But now it's just like, oh well, I mean, hey, you got picked up by Disney, that's cool. But it's not the same excitement, because back then when you got picked up by Disney, you felt like your project had some care. But now you're just another cog in the clock to make it tick, rather than being a part of the.
But people aren't even sure who to blame for that anymore. Like, is it just Bob Iger, or is it just Bob Chapek, or does it go back further than either of them?
Well, I think like I was saying, I think the clock that Disney now has is not so much about the cogs in the clock that make it tick, but it's about, oh my God, my project's at Disney, but now you're being added to this majesty of the clock. It's not so much about the inner workings of the clock; it's about the exterior of the clock.
That's what some people do fear to a degree.
Yes. When it comes to the executives, I think that Michael Eisner and Frank Wells had the right concept. But
Eisner tapered off in Wells' absence. Like, he just couldn't run the company on his own.
Oh no. And I think that goes to show that the format for Disney should be two CEOs. I know that there was an interview with Graham Bengisher that he said that two CEOs don't work, but I do think that that's the best model.
And I think they finally reinstated that format. They've brought in Josh D'Amaro as CEO, but they've reinstated the president role and put Dana Walden there.
Yes. And, Phil, as we call him the map, right? So, I say I'm kind of the Walt Disney of, I'm going to, think of the idea. And then Phil is the person that, he's the mapper. He thinks about budget, but he also has the creative sauce of, if it makes sense, we can invest more into it. Like, for example, there was an idea last night for something, and I just said, I don't know how much it's going to cost. I just come up with the ideas, and we all laughed, because that's what Disney does best. It's like, yeah, we don't know how much it's going to cost, but we're just going to go for it. And I think that they've lost the energy to have that much fun.
Yeah, they've lost the energy to go that hard. Like, they shouldn't be afraid to take those kinds of gambles.
And the other night we were discussing about World Showcase, and especially the UK Pavilion. And the UK Pavilion is another. You're from the UK and the Great Britain.
Yeah.
And speaking about properties, Phil wants to make an original attraction, and he was bringing up about. Normally, I think Phil should be.
I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to take off because as I've just been called down for dinner.
Oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine.
You can carry on in my absence.
Was there anything left over from the Once Upon a Short?
No, not really. Thank you.
No problem.
See ya.
No problem. This was wonderful. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for expanding on your 2.0.
Yes.
And yes, all for the potential for Disney. There's potential, and there is a fan base that is really devoted and respects the brand and their heart with the Disney films and properties and parks. So it was a
Okay,
delight to
see,
have you. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to mention.
So
Turing.
when it came to like the voices, right? Matthew talked about how, for the person that did Prince Eric and Prince Charming, that the person is still alive to be able to do it, but they recasted that person. So there was some recasting of some voices with this.
They answered Matthew's question. Maybe Peter Pan was my favorite part of the short, but I'm going to assume that Ursula was still around to do her voiceover as the in the short, because she was around for another few months before she had passed. And here's the image right now, though, folks, of Once Upon a Studio version 2.0, where he has included Mufasa. Look at the top of the awning there of the studio by the hat, and you find Mufasa right there.
Yes.
Now, can you point out the other characters he had added, Florentin?
I think
the
if you go
original-
back to the list, it should show the
Yeah, pull up the list.
characters. By the way,
Oh,
I thought your
yeah.
favorite moment would have been Donald Duck being pissed off at the slot.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Actually, yeah, Donald Duck. Yeah, Donald Duck. Actually, yeah. Yeah, you know what? Scratch that. Peter Pan's second, Donald Duck number one. Because
because that sloth was really going slow. Like
the whole elevator
this is-
thing. The whole elevator thing. He's in the elevator and he's got the sloth, from Zootopia. Well,
Yes.
thank you for the elevator. And then Baymax, of all people, I need to go into the elevator too. Get into the elevator and you hear Donald Duck, and once the door closes, like.
I feel like Mother Gothel would have actually been a good mother to Donald Duck in that scene. Like, it's okay. I'm evil too. I understand. I don't like what happened either.
Okay, so there's no Pixar in this.
No, because this
all
was
Walt
just
Disney
the
Studios.
Yeah, this is Walt Disney Studios.
Yeah, this was.
I
just
already understood that.
anime from.
Yes.
Say that again, Phil.
I understood that.
Oh, yeah,
Pixar
for
would
sure.
I only brought it up because I was thinking about Remy.
Yes.
No.
So this was just from the Walt Disney Animation Studios, which makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, what would have been really cool if they wanted to, because I'm sure Pixar has an anniversary as well.
Wow.
They could have done a Once Upon a Studio as well for all the Pixar films, and Pixar could have had their own thing as well, which I think they could still do.